If you're hiring an employee, yeah, you'll call it an interview, but it really is a conversation. And when you're choosing people that are going to be a part of your world, you need to be able to relate to them and they need to be able to speak your language. Do they need to be just like you? Absolutely not. But they need to see what's coming in from your core, from your soul, and you have to put out who you are. If you
Hello, my loves, and welcome back to Create Your Life. I am your host, Simone Leah. So, I just wanted to let you guys know that today's interview is actually an interview that I recorded about a year ago when I ran an online event called the Soul Led Entrepreneurs Summit. It was a really, really, really wonderful event. I had some beautiful, amazing speakers talking about things like connecting with your intuition and how you can use that in your business, how to do Facebook advertising, how to do marketing as a soul-led entrepreneur, all of these cool things to do with business, entrepreneurship, and actually also spirituality and connecting within. And so these interviews were so wonderful that I really wanted to be able to share them with you now. So if when you're watching this, you see or hear the word soul-led entrepreneurs, this is still the Create Your Life show, but these interviews were just too good for me to keep to myself any longer. So I really, really, really hope you guys enjoy this interview, and I can't wait to connect with you again soon. Hello and welcome to Soul Led Entrepreneurs. My name is Simone Leah, and today I had the amazing pleasure of chatting with the lovely Tonya Sowles of Sowles Consulting. Tonya knows so much about HR, hiring staff, and building teams that will help you grow and expand in your journey. Whether you're a soul-led entrepreneur who's just starting out, or whether you've already hired staff before, there's something in this interview for everyone. Some of the great things we talked about today is getting clear on your values that you want for your business moving forward before you even hire that first staff member. Knowing what's important to you, that your staff members are fun and lighthearted, or that they have attention to detail. Knowing these sort of values beforehand will help you to be able to really connect with these people that you're interviewing before you even get started working with them, and find out whether they have those values that do align with you before you start. Hey guys, I'm here with Tonya Sowles from Sowles Consulting. How are you going, Tonya?
It is fantastic. It has been a fabulous day. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, and I think I can speak for the whole audience as well when we say we're so excited to talk to you today as well. So we're going to be talking about how to build your team and grow an amazing soul-led team, connecting and engaging with your staff and having that support around you to grow your business to the next level today. So it's a super exciting chat, and we're so happy to have you here.
Oh, I'm so excited. Building your team is such an important part of your business. And what that looks like and how you do it can be done in so many ways so that it feels right to you as the business owner, to you as the leader, so that you can have a community if that's the culture that you want. And your team can be employees, it can be freelancers, it can be who you make up. But as long as you are engaging with them and creating what you expect your people to deliver to your audience, your customers, your clients, or whoever you're delivering your awesome product or service to, you will reap the benefits of building a team.
Yay, it's very exciting. So if someone wanted to build like a soul-led team as opposed to just having a like just picking a random person because their resume looks good, what does having a soul-led team kind of look like, where everybody that you're working with you've attracted in?
Something that is super important, because resumes are awesome and I totally think it's important that you have one, but when it comes to selecting who's on your team, you need to have a conversation. You need to have If you're hiring an employee, yeah, you'll call it an interview, but it really is a conversation. And when you're choosing people that are going to be a part of your world, you need to be able to relate to them and they need to be able to speak your language. Do they need to be just like you? Absolutely not. But they need to see what's coming in from your core, from your soul, and you have to put out who you are. If you put a facade on when you're trying to select who you want to work with because you think you have to be professional, or you think you have to be silly, or you think you have to be someone other than who you are at your core, you're never going to be happy with who you choose. And they're going to be so confused because they don't know who is really at their center versus the facade. And so I always talk to people when you're having those conversations, those interviews, those times. Yes, you do some of those kind of standard, tell me a little bit about yourself type questions, but then you go deeper and ask for examples of what they're doing. And I'm a big fan of Mike Michalowicz, who is an entrepreneurial author, and he talks about immutable laws and those basic things that as a person are like non-negotiables. For me, one of them is integrity, continuous learning. And sometimes his are much more comical that he gives as examples, but it's, we don't work with mean people. Or I have a client that if it's not fun, we don't do it. And as you're talking to the people bringing into your world, you share with them, these are the ways of my business. These are the ways that I lead things. And so I want to hear what some of your non-negotiables are. And if you're not sharing some of those base core values, those soul-led values, they're probably not the right person that's going to stick with you and really help you grow the business that you want.
So if someone did want to grow their team and expand their team, but they did want to find someone who really connects with them, how would they go about identifying what is those important like values to them that needs to be imparted to those staff members?
One, in deciding the values that they have, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. There's tons of exercises out there that really dig into what's really important to you. When you're sharing it with your potential team members, you can do not sneaky, but interesting things, like as you're beginning those initial email exchanges or messenger exchanges, asking for something specific. If humor is super important in how you run your business, ask them to share their favorite meme. Or if you are very detail oriented and that is a super focus, ask for something very specific in their response and see how they respond in those situations. But oftentimes in those initial conversations, as you're asking for examples of how they would handle situations or their experience in specific situations with specific things, also just sharing, this is really important to me, and watching those reactions.
Yeah.
And whether they're looking at you like, okay, you are crazy and I am not okay with this world. Because you can see those when you start talking about heart-centered and some people's faces just glaze over and you're like, yep, not my people.
Totally can relate. Yeah, well, because I think there's so many options these days for staff members, and you can get someone in the same town and you can get someone who's from the other side of the world. If someone was looking to grow their teams, firstly, would you put any restriction on where that staff member comes from, or do you think you can get the same quality work from anywhere?
I think you can get the same quality work from anywhere.
Yeah.
There are amazing people all over the world. Depending on what you need that staff member to do, maybe where those limitations come in. If you have a purpose where you need them to be on during a specific time of day, or you need them to engage with customers in a specific way, time zones might become an issue. There are amazing resources all over the world that they shift and they do, but you have to really talk to the person and find out. For example, you and I are halfway around the world from each other.
Yeah.
And so it's the start of your day, it's the end of my day. So if it was important for us to work together, how do we find those overlapping times? Or if it's a language, how do you test for the proficiency if they need a spoken word or a written word in the language that's important? And this is why you could do anywhere in the world, because there are super talented, multilingual, so many skills that people are transplanted, people that really want to be a part of a culture have really immersed themselves, and it's really easy to intermix. And so you just have to really think about, and when you're looking at expanding your team, it's what are those core things that you need in the position? What are the results that you need delivered? And what is most important to you, and how you want to work with that team member? If you are someone who needs to be very hands-on in the entire process of what you're going to have them do, you have to really think about the logistical challenges. But if you're someone who is looking to delegate, which I highly, highly recommend, and be really good at delegating, I need this result, I need these checkpoints, and how do you need support for your employees or VAs or whoever you're working with, then you need to set that expectation at the start. And a lot of it is really before you even start the selection process, is really outlining, okay, this is what I need a team member for. And there are a lot of people that I know that have team members that do one specific job for them. They may only do their graphic design, and the graphic design has no time restriction, has no language, especially restriction. So they work with graphic designers across the world. And they have a designer that they've been with for years and years and years, and it works great, even though they're never awake at the same time.
Yeah.
And there's editors, there's call centers, there's all kinds of things, but you have to decide what you need, what you want, and how you want to interact with them. And that's where that determination of whether it needs to be a local person or whether it can be halfway around the world.
So if someone was looking at like getting some employees, I think I'd love to just expand on what you were saying there about you might only have one person do one job. If someone's been running their own show as an entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur for a little bit of time, they might be thinking, I just want one person. I can't handle having multiple staff members. But at the same time, also what you said about finding people who are good at that one thing. So just having the one person do your graphic design, and then the one person who does your audio, and the one person who does your social media, and finding those people that are aligned to that specific task. If you're someone who's worked by yourself, having a team that consists of, say, 6 or 7 people doing little different things can be so daunting. Like, how would you speak to people even managing, wrapping their head around that? And then the systems for it.
The systems is what is required when you're doing something like that. You have to have your communication system. How are you going to assign and delegate tasks to one person or 6 people? How are you going to set their deadlines? How are you going to set their requirements? How are you going to exchange feedback? How are they going to have that communication? And that's where it's really important that you have your standard operating procedures in place, so that as you as a solopreneur are doing a job right now, record how you do it, so that when you are ready to hand that off to someone, you can say, this is what I do now. Here's my process. I need the end result. And if using specific software is important, if documenting the process in a CRM system or something like that is important, highlight those important pieces. As a solopreneur, I wouldn't recommend getting 7 people at one time. I would start with one pain point. One thing that is not in your zone of genius, is not in your heart's passion, that is taking you away from it, and outsource that first thing, or hire that first thing to get done. And once you've established the communication, the process for that first person, the next person gets way easier, because you've already got how to manage the communication, how to manage the file exchange, how to manage all of those system pieces to keep everything rolling, and you've ironed out those kinks. Once you get to 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7, 6 and 7, much easier, because you're already used to that process. The biggest challenge that I see for my clients who are starting that first endeavor into hiring an employee or outsourcing to a VA is giving over the control, is to actually allow them to do the work and not micromanage the process, because what if they don't do it the way you want it? And that's where that feedback is just super important. Anytime you're looking to build your team, whether you're hiring employees that are going to come into your office and work, or you're hiring employees that are going to work at the opposite time that you are, you have to have that continuous feedback and communication to say, I really like this. This was really good. Or I see you were trying to get here. I think we're a little off the mark, and here's how I need it to look different, or how I need the results to be different. I just had a client who is outsourcing appointment scheduling. She is having a VA call and make appointments with her clients, and the VA was doing some crazy scheduling, because there's a schedule, I'll just fill it, and not thinking about some of the other practical things that my client needed. And so it's like, okay, wait, we've got to have a communication of how I need that to look, and adjusting those expectations before just getting frustrated and like, this doesn't work, they're not doing what I want, so I should just do it myself, which happens so often when you first start that outsourcing process or that hiring process. Is like, they don't know what I want and they're not doing it, and it's just not right. And it's like, hold on, take a deep breath. They can't get in your mind until you share it. You have to bring it out of your mind. And that's why I was sharing, record what you do now, whether you use software like Zoom or Loom or whatever screen recording software to capture what you're doing, because it's way easier than trying to write down every step, because you can talk yourself through it. And then you can give that to someone and say, I need you to do this. And it's a much easier learning process. And then they can come back and it's like, okay, I tried, but I'm missing something. But it's really about that line of communication. That is the biggest driver for employee engagement and building that soul-led business, is knowing that those lines of communication are open and that the business owner is open to having the discussion when things don't go right. What happens if you have outsourced something and they know that it's going to get a negative reaction, they're going to wait till the very last minute to give you bad news. If they're like, oh, something didn't go right and I want to fix it, and you're like, okay, let's figure out what didn't go right and let's fix it, they're much likely to continue to have those conversations with you, and the relationship will get stronger and the work quality will get better. And that's where you're going to end up with the team that you're like, I never want these people to leave me. They're doing exactly what I want and what I need.
Oh, amazing. Yes, I think that's where we all want to get to, hey, where we can just feel so supported in the team around us.
Oh, absolutely. And it is really, I can't say communication enough. Talking to your people, letting them know what your expectations are, letting them know when they're spot on and doing awesome. And when they miss the mark, say, hey, I see you tried, but let's make it work better. And that's so important.
And I also feel like it's important to just touch on, if this is someone's first staff member and they're doing the old Google of all of the software and all of the programs they need, and they go and get their CRM software and they've got a Google Drive, like they've got Google Suite account, and then they're like, and I need Slack, and and they've just gone and downloaded all of this stuff that they haven't really used before, and they're getting their first employee and they're all amped up and they're so excited, and 3 weeks in they realize that they are literally 24/7. um, if if you are in the process of training a new staff member, how do you go about putting those boundaries in place so that you're not communicating with that staff member 24/7, but you are still there for them when they need you?
Especially if you're not working within the same time zone, setting the boundaries of when your work hours are. And so that your employees, your outsourced VAs, whoever it might be, knows that you are available from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., your time zone, and that you will get back to them as quickly as you can during that time. If they message anytime after that, you'll get back to them first thing in the morning and get responses and information. There may be times where you need to set an evening meeting or a crazy early in the morning meeting, just because you do need the FaceTime to have the conversation. But you have to set those parameters right up front. The harder part as the business owner, you have to stick to them, because it's so easy to get that notification on your phone that a message came in. You're like, oh, I really should. And it's because as soon as you start responding outside of the hours that you've laid out, you're saying, I'm available outside of those hours. And you have to acknowledge the challenges when you are working with people in different time zones, when you're working with people who work different schedules. And say, we need to figure a time where we come together or how we share that information that works for both of us, and keep your boundaries. And that's so hard as a solopreneur, but it's so important so that you have a life and you don't end up resenting having the help in your business.
Yeah. So it's even I suppose before you even hire that person, it's just getting clear on the way you want to run your business in terms of what hours you actually want to be available, so that when they do come in, you can kind of go, okay, this is what I feel connected to. I feel connected to being available in these times. Communication is going to generally look like this. It's easier for me to record a video than to write something, and actually having that plan of how you want your business to flow before you even bring that first person in.
You absolutely need to. If you don't have that plan in place, that's where things get off track and you get frustrated and you're like, it's not worth having this team member because it's so much more work. If you do the planning ahead of time so that you have a plan, then you can lay it out. And when you're having those conversations with team members, remember, our team members aren't newborn babies with no experience. Many of them are coming to us with a lot of great experience working in these unique circumstances and can make suggestions. And especially if it's your first time and you don't have all of the systems ironed out, and can say, I've seen it work really well to use Slack, or to use Dropbox versus Google Drive, or Google Drive versus Dropbox, or whatever software out there. And especially as a new employer, saying, here's the systems I've laid out. I'm open to ideas for improving them because I know these are just starting systems. And having that conversation, and your team members may be bringing you some great ideas, but it's that conversation again that pops up, and being open to, it's okay not to have all of the answers. It's okay to not know the very best way to project manage if you've never done it before. There may be a reason that your staff member prefers Trello over Asana over another software and would be happy to tell you, here's why I think this one has better features. And being open to that conversation really can make the whole experience better. And as I said, as you grow, you're getting your systems better and better, and it's easier and easier.
Yeah. And especially, as you said, if you've never even used those programs before, getting that feedback from someone who actually has, like, that makes a huge difference, because then also you feel like you're not on your own little island as a business owner. Like, you feel like you actually do have people you work with. It's not that you're the boss and this is your team and then they have to do it your way. It's more that you've brought in people who are an extension of you and a collaboration with you. And you can work together if those values that you've said at the beginning, if those values are in alignment, building that energy and structure to the business, that you can all work together and express ideas that you all think will help move the business forward. That would be an amazing place to be as a business owner, I would think.
Absolutely. And one of the things that is challenging is sometimes people get in their minds, I'm hiring someone to do a task or do a set of tasks or to help me. I have to have all of the answers all the time. And the most important thing any entrepreneur and business owner can think of is, I don't know that specific answer, but let's figure it out. Let's work on it. If the person you're working with has suggestions, let's explore it. Or if you're really not sure, connect with an expert, connect with someone to get the information you need. And that will help you so much. It's really, you don't have to have all of the answers. You don't have to have all of the solutions. There's a ton of resources out there to help you develop your systems, to help you figure those things out. So don't just struggle because you don't want to admit you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. It's okay to like just be learning as you go. And that's where expansion comes in, I think, is that we're always aiming to grow and expand. And that's exactly what the business is doing, is growing and expanding. So if you're coming into having your staff and building your team going, I know everything. I've got to be the boss. I've got to hold on to everything so tightly. It reduces the ability to grow and expand, I think.
Oh, absolutely. If you're trying to control, then your staff is not going to stretch, is not going to push to grow and give you new ideas. And that is some of your best generation of ideas on how to grow, is your staff saying, hey, have you thought about this? Because they have different experiences, they have a different perspective, and they can bring a new light to your business. You're like, I never had that idea. That's fantastic. And I know my customers are going to love it. So let's run in that direction. And so, absolutely, you have to know when you have employees, you're all learning together, you're all growing together, and you're all experiencing things together. As a leader, do you need to lead? Absolutely. But what that looks like is not with an iron fist. It's with integrity. It's with the soul that you have to share that with others and give to others so that they can lift up the company and lift up your business. And overall, that's going to make everything so much more successful.
Yeah. So how do you know how much like freedom to give that employee? Like obviously when you first start employing people, you are holding in a little bit close, but you also don't want to be just letting them run wild. How do you figure out what that line is for you so that you are maximizing the potential of that other soul, as opposed to restricting it?
When you're starting out, you are giving, I like to think about you're going to show them, you're going to help them, you're going to watch them, and then you're going to let them go. So when you're first starting out, you are going to give them a ton of direction, a ton of information, and over give information on what you need, why you need it, and if there's really specific things, why those things are important. And when you're talking about results, you're also going to talk about those checkpoints that you want along the way. When you're first starting out, it's a daily, did you get X, Y, and Z done? I want a message at the end of the day of what was accomplished and where I can see it. As you get more time and you see that they're competent in what they're doing, maybe that goes to a weekly summary. And then maybe it goes to, okay, I need this project, get it back to me. There will always be some mileposts, those checkpoints in there where you need to check in. You need to make sure what's happening. But it's kind of like with a baby, you've got to carry them first, and then they learn to crawl, and you're watching them, but they're making some ground, and then they're walking, and then they're running, and they're on their own. And that's kind of how you do it with your staff. When you first bring someone on, it's if they're truly a part of your team, it's not like a light switch and you hire them and you no longer have to worry about whatever you're giving them. That's where that communication and feedback has to be really intense and really often, so that you make sure they understand where your perspective, what you need, and that you want them to succeed. And that's one of the big things, especially when you're trying to run a soul-led business, is you are wanting everyone to succeed. It's not just you want because it's greed. It's no, I want to help these employees be successful. And for them, it's yes, it's helping grow my business. But in order to set them up for success, I have to give. And so that's, I mean, such an important part.
Yeah. What would you say are the top 3 tips that someone should know if they're going to bring on employees? Or the top 3 things that they should do, or what would you say the top 3 tips are for someone who wants to grow their business?
If you're looking to grow your business, number 1, start early making the list of what you want someone else to do. And then you need to decide, do you want employees or do you want to outsource to independent contractors where you don't have the control that you do with an employee? You can still build the relationships, you can still build the feedback, but the independent contractors are going to have a lot more freedom. And but if the employees, you have a lot more that responsibility. So you have to decide which type of relationship do you want to build. And that really comes from inside of you. If you want to just have a more distant experience, you don't want employees. You want to use outsourced services. And that's totally fine. But you need to be happy with where you decide that's going to be. And then starting and thinking about those basic things that are really important when you're working with someone. What are those things that you want to make sure that you share in common? What are those immutable laws, those unbreakable things that if this person behaves this way, I am not going to be able to tolerate those? And then start thinking about thought-provoking questions to ask in those conversations. Beyond the, tell me about your experience, tell me about your jobs. Do you know how to use this software? Have you ever used this? Think about those more thought-provoking things of, tell me about a time when this happened. Tell me about what you would do if this happened. How would you handle this particular situation? And really think about those thought-provoking things. A lot of my clients who are embarking on finding their first person, they don't know what to ask. They don't know what to say. And having a plan to have that conversation, it may go off the rails very quickly, but at least you have somewhere to start so that you're not staring at another person on the computer screen or exchanging emails and you're getting yes, no answers. Figuring out how you're going to do the conversation and making that planning is so important before you make your first hire.
Yeah. I feel like there's so much more we could talk about. I'm so I want to know everything. It's so there's just so much. I think that one thing that I think is probably really important to touch on is if someone is in the process of hiring someone, because if you're just hiring them through pen and paper, like just emails and that sort of stuff, would you recommend before you actually hire them, whether they're a subcontractor, whether they're someone that obviously you would meet, but if they're from the other side of the planet, would you recommend actually having a video or phone call with them before you actually take that step, even if it's just someone as like you just want graphic design done, every now and again?
If you, this is a tricky question because of a cultural thing. There are some cultures, because their homes are not fancy, their homes are not what some in the Western world would consider nice. There are some cultures that have a thing about cameras. There are some cultures that have some of those hiccups when it comes to traditional Western values when it comes to interviewing. So you need to be very culturally aware. Are you putting someone in a really uncomfortable position by asking them to get on camera? And there's a ton of resources out there if you're looking to hire someone from a specific culture that will tell you, be aware they're not comfortable doing this. So in those situations, I would say no. If you're looking just for a graphic designer and you're not really looking to necessarily build a inclusive relationship, then the video is not necessary specifically, but you need to then have done a lot of digging into their work and do a lot of digging into their examples of work and have an exchange via email or message so that you understand that they understand what you're asking for.
Yeah. I love that. I think that was really amazing that you brought up the cultural differences. So I guess when you are hiring someone, it's more just about being open to meet them at their level. And if their level doesn't include video, you can still get to know them and bring them into your team with alignment to both of you.
Absolutely. And that's what's really important when thinking, because there are amazing people who for cultural reasons communicate differently. And that's okay, especially if they align in other ways and they bring amazing things to your business. Then you have to be cognizant of there's differences, but it doesn't mean it's bad.
Do you have any recommended resources, like a number one thing that you think people should either look at or read or learn about if they are going to bring on a team?
There are a ton of resources out there. And when you're looking at bringing on a team, you have to look at how you want to be as a leader. I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan. So the start with why, because that's going to get down to those core values of what you're doing and why you're doing it and help you put those base foundational pieces of what's important to you in place. So that is a huge one. If you're looking to grow your business, and this is going to sound like a totally silly book, but it's actually really awesome for entrepreneurs. It's The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz. If you're looking to grow your business, it is fantastic resource helping you build those vision, your mission, your immutable laws, but then also looking at what systems make sense for your business and how building that team makes sense for you. So that is a great resource. I'm trying to think there's actually an outsourcer's guide. And I just lost the name of the book in my mind, that is about outsourcing specifically to outsource to the Philippines and other countries that have a huge VA population and helping you understand some of those cultural differences. So there's so many resources out there. There are a ton. If it's leadership, Brene Brown's Dare to Lead is so impactful as a leader, to really think about how you say and how you act has an effect on those around you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It has been so, so lovely to just chat to you and connect with you in this way. Would you be able to share like where people can find you, and then have a little bit of we would love to hear about your free product that you've got for everyone today.
Yes. You can find me on social media, on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm at Tonya Sowles. On Facebook, it's Sowles Consulting. And then I do have a free guide at 12 ways to engage your employees. So once you have hired your people, it's a great resource and a lot of conversation, but talking about flexibility and those other things. And you can get that at soulsconsulting.com/engagement.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I will link to that for everybody so that you can all grab access to that. It has been such a pleasure to have you on and talk to you today. It's been really, really enjoyable. And I know everyone will have got so much value out of this. I've gotten so much value out of it. It's just been amazing to connect with you this way. So thank you so much for coming on the show and having a chat with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been fantastic. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.